The beat-em-up genre has been around for what feels like forever. Hell, it's almost been around for as long as I have. Talk about old and crusty. Ever since the late 80s, games like Final Fight, Double Dragon, and Golden Axe became seemingly overnight sensations, and the genre ultimately dominated the arcades for years to come. However, while these games are outstanding, countless lesser-known beat-em-ups somehow managed to fly under the radar for years. Today, we at Hey Poor Player are going to take a look back at 5 black sheep of the bare-knuckle brawler genre that deserve your quarters. So without further ado, let's dive in. The final game in the Neo Geo Brawler trilogy, Sengoku III doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. This is likely due to the fact it didn't release until the tail end of the platform's lifespan, when beat-em-ups were waning in popularity. And that's a shame, because Sengoku III is a massive evolution over its predecessors. For starters, the game has some of the most impressive visuals on the Neo Geo, with its genuinely massive and detailed character and enemy sprites. Each of the game's stages, which are set all over the globe, looks stellar and has a distinct visual style. Of course, the game doesn't just look good, developer Noise Factory did a fantastic job of crafting an unforgettable soundtrack that goes together with the beat-em-up action better than phone booths and turkeys. As good as the game's presentation is, Sengoku III's most significant improvement over the first 2 games is the combat itself. Noise Factory completely overhauled the fighting engine with an in-depth combo system, allowing you and a friend to juggle baddies with dozens of hits before they even touch the ground. Each of the game's 6 playable characters, 4 immediately selectable, plus 2 unlockable bosses, have numerous special attacks they can unleash by charging up a new special meter. And if that isn't enough, you can keep a handful of projectiles on hand to punish enemies from a distance or further expand your combos. All of these elements come together to create a truly satisfying slugfest. If you're looking to get your mitts on the Neo Geo home cart, you're going to spend a pretty penny. The game regularly sells for over $2,500 these days. I was lucky enough to pick up the MVS version of the game many years ago, before its value went through the roof. However, if you're looking to get your samurai brawler action on without breaking the bank, you're in luck. The game is now available on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch as part of Hamster's ACA Neo Geo line for a much more budget-friendly $7.99. Have you ever wondered what would happen if Splatterhouse bumped uglies with Final Fight on a full moon, surrounded by piles of goats' heads and strange demonic murals? If so, you're pretty sick and should probably seek some serious help, you perverted person of impeccable taste. Still, regardless of whether or not you want to see Hagar riding a wiggly bloated boarworm, you should probably check out Night Slashers. Developed by Data East and released in 1993, Night Slashers is a ghoulish, horror-themed beat-em-up that allows you to choose from 3 characters. The American cybernetic super soldier Jake Hunter, who looks like the byproduct of a one-night stand between a Guns N' Roses greatest hits CD and RoboCop, the dapper vampire hunter Christopher Smith, and the scrappy mystical martial artist Zhao Honghua, each with their own unique fighting styles and screen-clearing special moves. The action in Night Slashers is over the top and gruesome. You'll feel like a nightmare version of has-been comedian Gallagher as the heads of your enemies explode like overly ripe cantaloupes. Defeated enemies often fall to the ground in grotesque heaps of rotten meat, or with their guts splayed all over the floor. No doubt about it, this is one game that's undoubtedly inspired by the gore-soaked Mortal Kombat sensation of the early 90s, and it shows. Even without the obscene amounts of blood and viscera, Night Slashers is hugely entertaining. The game's hand-drawn sprites look fantastic and feature tons of detail, which makes them all the more fun to bludgeon to bits. And while the soundtrack isn't the best the genre has to offer, this blood-soaked button masher features more than a handful of haunting compositions to pull you into the action. If you're looking for a spooky brawler that doesn't take itself too seriously, then you're in luck. Night Slashers is now available on the Nintendo Switch eShop. Legendary developer IREM is more known for their run-and-gun and shoot-'em-up titles like Gunforce and In the Hunt, but that doesn't mean they couldn't craft one hell of a brawler when they wanted to, as evidenced by the punch-drunk hits Blade Master, Undercover Cops, and Hook. Released in 1993, Ninja Baseball Batman delivers more fun than you can shake 27 inches of aluminum at. This 4-player brawler allows you to take control of 4 superpowered sluggers named after baseball greats like Jose Canseco, Ryan Sandberg, Roger Clemens, and Darryl Strawberry as you pummel hordes of baseball-themed evildoers and their foul balls. If you haven't had the chance to drop a quarter in this gem before, you really need to. It's fast-paced, vibrantly colored, and hugely addicting. Each hit delivers a satisfying crack as you send berserk baseball bats, petulant playing cards, and other quirky enemies into the stands. Add to that some absolutely over-the-top bosses like a plane that fights you within a plane, Planeception, a marauding monster truck named Madlax, and a sentient slot machine, and you have a game that's truly in a league of its own. If you're looking to get your grubby catcher's mitt on a home port of Ninja Baseball Batman, unfortunately you're out of luck. The game sadly never saw a home release. That said, if you happen to find this machine in the wild, it's well worth smashing your piggy bank open to take it to the bottom of the ninth. Capcom is a company who was synonymous with the beat-em-up genre in the late 80s and early 1990s with hits like Final Fight, Alien vs. Predator, The Punisher, and more. However, one of their best 2D ass-kicking simulators, Battle Circuit, remains relatively obscure. Powered by Capcom's iconic CPS2 arcade hardware, Battle Circuit never officially made its way to arcades in North America. Instead, the game was only released in Europe, Japan, and Asian markets back in 1997. And let me tell you, we most certainly missed out because Battle Circuit is one hell of a good time. Set in the funky futuristic city of Neo Koba, the game allows 4 players to take on the roles of bounty hunters and track down the city's most dangerous criminals. Of course, justice is a dish best served with a side of fists, feet, and rocket-powered uppercuts. Battle Circuit features 5 playable characters that are unlike any you've ever seen in a beat-em-up before. Sure, you have your stereotypical shade-sporting tough guy, but you can also play as a giant extraterrestrial Venus flytrap, a beast woman who can sick her pet fox on enemies to bring them to their knees, and my personal favorite, a massive sentient pink ostrich with an eye patch, and her plucky bird jockey, Pola Abdul. Did I mention the game's pretty freaking weird? Okay, just making sure. Yes, Battle Circuit is a real fever dream of a brawler, and you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. In addition to the game's ridiculous roster of pugilists, Battle Circuit features a pretty fun upgrade mechanic. Money that you earn from capturing bad guys can be spent to unlock new abilities in between missions. These moves are all useful, and by the end of the game, you'll have an arsenal of skills to help you put the hurt on the galaxy's most formidable evildoers. If you haven't had the chance to experience Battle Circuit yet, you can find it on the recently released Capcom Beat 'em Up collection on the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. When you think of Konami's beat 'em ups, chances are those monolithic multiplayer cabinets like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, The Simpsons, and X-Men come to mind. However, while these games were staples in arcades of the early 90s, the company made a handful of exceptional unlicensed ones as well. And when it comes to these lesser-known brawlers, Violent Storm is arguably the best of the punch-drunk bunch. Initially released in 1993, the game takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. After the Geld Gang, led by Lord Geld and his gremlin-esque right-hand man Red Freddy, kidnap Sheena, her horribly dressed but fighting fit friends Wade, Boris, and Kyle must pummel their way through the ruined city and rescue her. Sure, the story in Violent Storm is about as unoriginal as it gets, but that's okay, because the core gameplay is an absolute riot. Cracking skulls and kicking the snot out of hordes of post-apocalyptic hillbillies, militant hobos, and gnarly Dave Mustaine-looking metalheads with clever names like Gigadeath is insanely satisfying thanks to the game's snappy controls and comedic combat. For example, pick up a piglet and it becomes a football you can wing at your opponent. Is a lounging tramp sitting a little too close to the entrance of that boxcar? Give him a shove and he'll be riding the rails with his face. Hell, one boss is a massive muscle man in a banana hammock who looks straight out of Chowaniki. Despite the tongue-in-cheek presentation, Violent Storm is an exceptionally well-made beat-em-up. And it's not a cakewalk either. Some of the later bosses can pose a pretty considerable challenge if you're not the type to credit feed your games. Sadly, like Ninja Baseball Batman, Violent Storm never saw any sort of home release, which, to be fair, makes sense. Given the game's enormous sprites and detailed graphics, Konami would have had to seriously downgrade the game to make it fit on any of the consoles of its day. That is, except for maybe the Neo Geo. But sadly, the company didn't develop any games for the Neo Geo. So, if you're in the mood to enjoy a little ultra-violence, you're going to have to plunk down a fair chunk of cash for the arcade PCB, or find some other way to play it. That is, unless you just so happen to have a machine at your local Costco. Hey poor players, thanks again for tuning in. So, did we leave out any of your favorite lesser-known brawlers? If so, please let us know in the comments below. And no, we didn't forget about Cadillacs and dinosaurs. That one's kinda right on the cusp between popularity and being a little obscure, so it's definitely a great game. It deserves a spot, but just not here. Anyway, sound off in the comments, let us know some of your favorite lesser-known brawlers, and as always, thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and follow us, it really helps a lot. And as always, check us out at heypoorplayer.com or follow us on any of the social media links above. Thanks again.